I thought I'd found my second chance at love. She called me her forever, said she'd never leave, but forever lasted exactly as long as my pension check, and when I couldn't send $800 a month anymore, she disappeared like I never existed. I was sitting in a beach bar in Cebu, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. The bottle of San Miguel in my hand was warm. I'd been nursing it for an hour, maybe longer. I wasn't keeping track. 3 years since the divorce. 3 years since I'd felt anything resembling peace. Newcastle felt like it belonged to someone else's life now. My kids barely called. When they did, the conversations were stiff, obligatory. "How are you, Dad?" "Fine. Everything okay?" "Fine. We should visit soon." But they never did. I'd come to the Philippines looking for something I couldn't name. Maybe just a place where I didn't feel so damn invisible. The bar was quiet, a few locals at the counter, the bartender wiping glasses with slow, deliberate movements. The ceiling fan spun overhead, barely moving the thick, humid air. Then she walked in. I noticed her immediately. Not just because she was beautiful, though she was. It was the way she moved. Confident, warm, like she belonged everywhere and nowhere at the same time. She laughed at something the bartender said, and the sound cut through the humid air like music I'd forgotten existed. Our eyes met. She smiled. Not the polite smile strangers give each other. Something warmer, something that made my chest tighten. I looked away first, felt stupid for staring, felt like a creep, but when I glanced back, she was still looking, and then she walked over, just like that. No hesitation. "You look lonely," she said. Her English was good, accented but clear, confident. "Is this seat taken?" I shook my head, gestured to the empty stool beside me. "All yours." She sat down, ordered a pale Pilsen from the bartender in Bisaya, then turned to face me fully. "I'm Lynn," she said. "Ken," I replied. We shook hands. Hers was small and soft in mine. "You're not from here," she said. It wasn't a question. "Newcastle," I said. "England. Retired. Just traveling." "Alone?" she asked. I nodded. "Alone." She studied me for a moment. Not judging, just looking. Really looking. Like she could see past the weathered skin and gray hair and bad knees. "That's sad," she said. "A man like you shouldn't be alone." I laughed. Couldn't help it. A man like me? I'm 67. Tired. Nothing special. She shook her head, reached over and touched my arm. Just a light touch. "You're wrong. I can see it in your eyes. You're kind. You've been hurt, but you're still kind." Something in my chest twisted. When was the last time someone had said that to me? When was the last time anyone had looked at me and seen something other than an old man running out the clock? "What brings you to the Philippines?" she asked. Honestly, I don't know. Needed to get away. Needed to feel something different. "From what?" she asked. "From everything. My life. My ex-wife. My kids who don't call. From being invisible." I paused, realized I was saying too much. "Sorry. You don't want to hear all that." I asked. "Didn't I?" she said. She smiled. "Besides, I understand. Feeling invisible. Feeling like no one sees you. I know that feeling." "You?" I said. "You're beautiful. How could anyone not see you?" She looked down. "Beauty doesn't mean people see who you really are. They see what they want to see. The package, not the person." We talked for hours. The sun disappeared. The stars came out. The bartender brought us another round without us asking. She told me about her life. Born in a small barangay outside Cebu City. 6 siblings. Her father died when she was 12. Her mother raised them all alone. She worked 3 jobs, Lynn said. Cleaning houses, selling fish at the market, sewing clothes at night. I watched her break herself to keep us alive, and I promised myself I'd take care of her one day. But I haven't been able to. Not the way she deserves. She'd worked at a hotel for years. Reception, guest services. Good job. But the hotel closed during the pandemic. Now she was doing whatever she could find. Odd jobs, freelance work, barely scraping by. It's hard here, she said. But I don't complain. Life is life. You keep moving. What else can you do? I told her about the divorce, how my ex-wife had taken everything, the house, the savings, the respect, how my kids sided with her. They said I was never there, I said. Said I chose work over them. Maybe they were right. I thought providing was enough. I thought if I worked hard and paid the bills and gave them a good life, that would be enough, but it wasn't. That's not fair, she said. You were doing what you thought was right. You were trying to take care of them. Doesn't matter now, I said. She got the house, got the kids, got the life, and I got a pension and bad knees. That's not nothing, she said. You worked hard. Doesn't feel like it matters, I said. That's because you're measuring yourself by what they think, she said. What about what you think? What do you want? I looked at her, really looked at her. I want to feel like I matter again. She put her hand on mine, just rested it there, warm, soft. You matter, Ken. Don't let anyone make you believe you don't. I looked down at her hand, small and warm on mine. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. When we finally left the bar, the moon was high, full, casting silver light across the water. She walked beside me back toward my hotel. At the entrance, she stopped. Can I see you again? She asked. I'd like that, I said. I'd really like that. She smiled. That same smile from before, the one that made me feel like maybe, just maybe, I wasn't invisible anymore. Tomorrow, I'll pick you up at 10. I'll show you the real Cebu, not the tourist places, the real one. Okay, I said. It's a date. She laughed. It's a date. I watched her walk away, disappearing into the warm night, her figure getting smaller until I couldn't see her anymore. I went to bed that night feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. The next 3 months were the happiest I'd had in a decade, maybe longer, maybe ever. Lynn became my guide, my companion, my everything. She picked me up at 10 the next morning, just like she'd promised. She was wearing a simple sundress, yellow, made her glow. Ready to see the real Cebu? She asked. I'm ready, I said. She took me to places tourists never see. Hidden waterfalls where the water was so clear you could see straight to the bottom. Small villages where chickens ran loose and kids played in the streets. Her friends lived there. They'd greet her with hugs and laughter, then look at me with curiosity. This is Ken, she'd say. He's special. And the way she said it made me believe it, made me feel it. We'd eat at roadside stalls, plastic chairs and metal tables. She'd order for both of us in Bisaya, dishes I couldn't pronounce. Try this, she'd say, pushing a plate toward me. It's adobo. You'll love it. I'd taste it. The mix of soy sauce and vinegar and garlic. It's amazing. See? I know what you like already, she'd say. She'd smile, touch my arm, and I'd feel like the luckiest man alive. We spent nearly every day together. I'd pick her up in the morning. We'd drive along the coast, stop wherever looked interesting. She'd tell me stories about her childhood, about growing up poor but happy. We didn't have much, she'd say, but we had each other. That's more than most people have. You're right, I'd say. It is. One afternoon, we were sitting under a mango tree. The shade was cool. She was leaning against me. Tell me about your children, she said. I didn't want to, but something about the way she asked made it feel safe. I have 2, a son and a daughter. They're grown now, have their own lives. Do they visit you? She asked. Not really. They're busy. I understand. That's sad, Ken. You should have people who love you, who make time for you. They do love me, I said. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure I believed it. Then they should show it, she said. She sat up, looked at me directly. You deserve to be loved, really loved, not just tolerated. I felt something crack open in my chest. Thank you for saying that. I mean it, she said. She took my hand. You're a good man. Better than you think you are. We'd sit and talk for hours. About everything. About nothing. She told me about her dreams. Simple dreams. A house by the sea. A garden where she could grow vegetables. Maybe a dog. Nothing fancy, she'd say. Just peace. Just enough. You know? I knew. God, I knew. What about you? She asked. What do you dream about? I thought about it. I dream about not being alone anymore. She squeezed my hand. You're not alone. Not anymore. One evening, we were at the beach. The sun was setting. She leaned against me, fit perfectly in the crook of my arm. Tell me about your marriage, she said. I tensed. Why do you want to know about that? 'Cause it's part of who you are, and I want to know all of you. I took a breath. It was good once. Maybe it was. I don't know anymore. She said I worked too much, that I didn't listen, that I made her feel invisible. Did you? Lynn asked. Probably, I said. I thought providing was enough. I thought if I worked hard and paid the bills and gave them a good life, that would be enough. But it wasn't. What happened? She asked. She met someone else, another teacher at her school, younger, more attentive. One day she just told me she was done, that she'd been done for years, and I didn't even see it coming. Lynn was quiet for a moment. Then she said, she was stupid. What? I said. She was stupid, letting you go. You're kind. You're loyal. You're everything a woman should want. You don't even know me, I said. But I wanted her to be right. God, I wanted her to be right. I know enough, she said. She turned to look at me. I know you've been hurt. I know you're lonely. I know you're trying to find your way again. She paused. I've been hurt too, Ken. Tell me, I said. She looked away, out at the water. I was with someone for 5 years. Daniel, he was Australian, older, like you. He promised me everything. Marriage, a visa, a real future. We'd talk about our life together every night. Her voice got smaller. I gave him everything. My time, my body, my heart. I believed him. What happened? I asked. He went back to Australia. Said he'd send for me once he got settled. I waited a year, a whole year. Then I found out through a friend. He'd married someone else, someone younger, someone with money. I was just practice for him. Her voice cracked. I pulled her closer. I'm sorry. It's okay, she said. But her voice was fragile, like it might break. I just don't want to be thrown away again. I won't throw you away, I said, and I meant it. She looked up at me, eyes wet. Promise? Promise, I said. She kissed me then, soft, hesitant, like she was afraid I'd pull away. I didn't. We started spending nights together. She'd stay at my hotel. We'd lie in bed and talk about the future. Beautiful, vague plans. Would you ever want to live here? She asked one night. Her head was on my chest. I could feel her breath against my skin. In the Philippines? I asked. Yeah. Would you? Or is it too different? I thought about it. Maybe. If I had a reason to. She propped herself up on one elbow. Looked at me. What if I was your reason? My heart started beating faster. Are you? She nodded. I could be. If you wanted me to be. I pulled her close. I want you to be. She curled into me. Whispered against my chest. Promise you'll never leave me? I promise, I said, and I meant every word. She never asked me for money. Not once in those first 3 months. That should have made me feel better. Instead, it made me want to give her more. I started paying for everything. Dinners, trips, little things. Ken, no. It's too much, she'd say whenever I'd hand the waiter my card. Let me. I'd say, please. It makes me happy. And it did. For a while. But looking back now, I can see what was happening. She wasn't taking. She was building. Building dependency. Building gratitude. Building a debt I didn't even know I owed. Not yet. 3 months in, I was completely hers. And I didn't even realize I was already drowning. 4 months in, everything changed. We were lying in bed one morning. The sun was streaming through the curtains. She was quiet, staring at the ceiling. Her jaw was tense. "What's wrong?" I asked. She shook her head. "Nothing." "Lynn, talk to me." She turned to me. Her eyes were red. "My mother's in the hospital." I sat up immediately. "What happened?" Her blood sugar. "It's bad. Really bad. They need to run tests. Keep her overnight. Maybe longer." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I don't have the money, Ken. The deposit alone is 15,000 pesos. I don't know what to do." "How much is that in pounds?" I asked. "About 210, she said. "It's too much. I shouldn't have said anything. I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry," I said. "I'll take care of it." She looked at me. "Ken, no. I can't ask you to do that." "You didn't ask," I said. "I'm offering. Your mother needs help. I can help. Let me help." "But it's so much money," she said. "It's not about the money," I said. "It's about doing the right thing. She's your mother. She raised you. Of course I'll help." She started crying. Really crying. She threw her arms around me, held me so tight I could barely breathe. "Thank you. Thank you. You're my hero." I held her, felt her shake against me, felt needed, felt important, felt like I mattered for the first time in years. I transferred the money that afternoon. She was with me when I did it, watched me type in the amount, watched it go through. "I'll pay you back," she said. "You don't have to pay me back," I said. "I do. I will. As soon as I can." But we both knew she never would. And I didn't care. That night, she made dinner, her best dishes, chicken adobo, pancit, lumpia. She smiled more, touched me more, kissed me deeper. "I don't know what I'd do without you," she said as we lay in bed. "You saved my mother. You saved me." "I didn't save anyone," I said. "I just helped." "No," she said. "You saved us." A week later, she was upset again. We were having coffee at a cafe. She was staring at her phone. Her face was tight. "What is it?" I asked. "My niece," she said. "Her school fees are due. If we don't pay by Friday, she'll have to drop out." "How much?" I asked. She looked at me, hesitant. 8,000 pesos. "But Ken, I'm not asking. I'm really not. You've done so much already." "I know you're not asking," I said, "but I'm offering. I can't keep taking from you," she said. "You're not taking," I said. "I'm giving. There's a difference." She bit her lip. "She's so smart, Ken. Top of her class. She's going to be the first one in our family to finish high school. If she drops out now." She trailed off. "I just don't want her to end up like me." "What's wrong with you?" I asked. "I'm 39 and I have nothing," she said. Her voice cracked. "No education. No career. Just surviving day to day. I don't want that for her." "Then we won't let it happen," I said. I pulled out my phone. "Give me the school's details. I'll send the money today." "Ken, please." "You don't have to." "I want to," I said, and I did. I wanted to be the hero. I wanted to fix things. I wanted to matter. She hugged me, kissed me. "You're too good to me. You deserve it," I said. Then it was her sister, the roof, leaking during the rainy season. Water was getting into the house, ruining everything. They couldn't afford the repairs. "I'm so sorry," Lynn said when she told me. "I know I keep bringing you problems. I feel like such a burden." "You're not a burden," I said. "You're my girlfriend. This is what people do. They help each other." "But it's always me needing help," she said. "You never need anything from me." "I need you," I said. "That's enough." She looked at me. Something flickered in her eyes. Something I couldn't read. Then it was gone. "How much is the roof?" I asked. "They quoted 12,000 pesos, but it's okay. We'll figure something out. We always do." "I'll send it," I said. "Ken, no. You've done enough." "It's fine," I said. "Really. I want to help." I sent the money that night. She thanked me, but it was briefer this time, less emotional, more matter of fact. And then I started noticing other things. She was on her phone more, constantly, texting. Sometimes she'd smile at whatever she was reading. Sometimes she'd laugh. "What's funny?" I'd ask. "Nothing," she'd say, "just my sister." But she wouldn't show me. And when I'd try to look, she'd angle the phone away, subtly, but enough that I noticed. She started being short with me. I'd suggest a restaurant. "I'm tired of that place," she'd say. "Okay, where do you want to go?" "I don't know. You pick. But not there." I'd suggest the beach. "It's too hot." "The mall. Too crowded." "A movie." "I'm not in the mood." "Then what do you want to do?" I'd ask. "I don't know, Ken. Why do I have to decide everything?" But she wasn't deciding anything. She was just rejecting everything I suggested. One evening, I asked her what was wrong. We were sitting on my hotel balcony. She was scrolling through her phone, barely looking at me. "Lynn," I said, "talk to me. What's going on?" She sighed. Put down her phone. "Nothing's going on. You've been distant, distracted. Did I do something wrong?" "Why do you always think it's about you?" she snapped. "Maybe I'm just stressed. Maybe I have a lot on my mind. Did you ever think of that?" "I'm sorry," I said. "I didn't mean to." "You're suffocating me, Ken," she said. "You always want to talk, always want to know what I'm thinking. I need space. I need to breathe." I backed off, apologized again, told myself she was just stressed. The money, her family, the pressure. Of course she was on edge, but deep down, I knew. Something had shifted. She was pulling away, and I didn't know how to pull her back, because pulling meant pushing, and pushing meant losing her. So I just sat there, quiet, watching her scroll through her phone, watching her smile at messages I'd never see, and telling myself everything was fine, even though I knew it wasn't. I took her to the beach, the same beach where we'd first talked about the future. I'd been thinking about this for weeks, maybe longer. I needed something to hold on to, something that proved this was real. We were sitting in the sand. The sun was setting. She was quiet, distant. I reached over and took her hand. "Lynn," I said, "I want to ask you something." She looked at me. "Okay." I took a breath. "I want to marry you." She blinked. "What?" "I want to marry you. I want to bring you to the UK. Build a real life together. I want you to be my wife." For a moment, she didn't say anything. Then her eyes filled with tears. "Ken, are you serious?" "I've never been more serious about anything in my life," I said. She started crying. "Yes, yes, of course yes." We held each other. I felt relief flood through me. This was it. This was the proof. She loved me. She wanted me. We'd build something real. But then she pulled back, wiped her eyes. Her face changed, got serious. "Ken, if we're going to do this, I need to be honest with you." "Okay," I said. "About what?" She looked down, picked at the sand. "I can't keep living like this, borrowing from my family, struggling every month. It's humiliating." "I know," I said. "That's why I want to bring you to the UK. But the visa process takes time," she said. "Months, maybe a year, and I need to survive until then." "What do you need?" I asked. She hesitated, bit her lip, looked out at the water, then back at me. "I need stability. I need to know I can pay my rent, buy food, handle bills, without panicking every month." "How much are we talking about?" I asked. She took a breath. $800 a month, just until the visa comes through. Then I'll never ask you for anything again. I'll work, I'll contribute, but right now, I need help. $800. I did the math in my head. My pension was £1,200 a month. After my flat in Newcastle, my bills, my food, that left me with maybe £400. $800 was almost all of it. It would be tight, really tight. "That's a lot," I said. "I know," she said. Her voice got small. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have asked. Forget I said anything." "No," I said. "No, I didn't mean it like that. I just meant, I need to think about it. She pulled her hand away. You need to think about it. Lynn, I just proposed to you. I want to marry you. But $800 a month is my entire savings. I need to make sure I can do it. She stood up. You know what? Forget it. I shouldn't have asked. I'm sorry I'm such a burden. You're not a burden, I said, standing up too. I'm not saying no. I'm just saying let me think about it. There's nothing to think about, she said. Either you want to help me or you don't. Either we're in this together or we're not. That's not fair, I said. Fair, she said. You know what's not fair? Watching my mother suffer because I can't afford her medicine. Watching my niece drop out of school because I can't help. Living in a room with a leaking roof because I don't have $800 a month. That's not fair. I've helped you, I said. I've sent you thousands already, and I'm grateful, she said. But that's not enough. I need something regular, something I can count on. If you can't give me that, then maybe we're not meant to be together. My chest tightened. Are you giving me an ultimatum? I'm telling you what I need, she said. If that's an ultimatum, then I guess it is. I looked at her, at the woman I'd fallen in love with, at the woman who'd made me feel alive again, and I realized I was terrified of losing her. Okay, I said. I'll do it. Her face changed immediately, softened. Really? Really, I said. $800 a month, until the visa comes through. She threw her arms around me. Thank you. Thank you. I promise I'll make you so happy. I promise you won't regret this. I held her, but even as I did, that small voice in the back of my mind whispered, the voice I'd been ignoring for weeks, the voice that said, you just bought her. I pushed it away, told myself I was being cynical, told myself this was different. She wasn't using me. She was building a future with me. She said so, and I believed her, because I had to. I sent the first $800 on the first of the month. She messaged me right away. Got it. Thank you, baby. Love you. That was it. 4 words. I waited for more. A call, a video chat, something. But nothing came. I told myself she was busy. The visa paperwork was probably overwhelming. She was probably stressed. I messaged her that evening. Hey, how are you? She didn't reply for 6 hours. When she did, it was short. Tired. Talk tomorrow. The next day, I called her. She didn't pick up. I tried again an hour later. She answered, sounded annoyed. Ken, I'm busy. I just wanted to hear your voice, I said. You're being needy, she said. I have a lot going on right now. I can't drop everything every time you want to talk. I'm sorry, I said. I didn't mean to bother you. It's fine, she said, but her voice was cold. I have to go. She hung up. I stared at my phone, told myself it was nothing. She was stressed. That was all, but it kept happening. Messages took hours to get replies, sometimes a full day. When we did talk, she was distracted, short. I'd tried a video call. She'd say, not now. I look terrible. I don't care. I just want to see you. Well, I care. Tomorrow. But tomorrow never came. I started checking my bank account obsessively, watching the balance drop. My pension came in. I paid my bills, sent her the $800. What was left barely covered food. I stopped going out, stopped buying anything that wasn't essential. I told myself it was temporary, just until the visa came through, then everything would be fine. One night, I couldn't sleep. It was 2 a.m. in Newcastle. That made it 9 a.m. in Cebu. I called her. The phone rang and rang. Then someone picked up. A man's voice, deep, speaking Tagalog. My heart stopped. Hello? I said. Who is this? There was fumbling, voices in the background. Then Lynn. Ken? Why are you calling me so early? Who was that? I asked. My voice was shaking. Who answered your phone? That was my cousin, she said. Her voice was sharp, defensive. Why are you interrogating me? Your cousin? I said. Yes, he's visiting. He grabbed my phone by mistake. Why don't you trust me? I do trust you, I said, but my voice cracked. Then why are you acting like this? She said. You're suffocating me, Ken. I can't breathe. I need space. I'm sorry, I said. I didn't mean to. I have to go, she said. She hung up. I sat there in the dark, my hands shaking. I didn't believe her. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But I didn't. I messaged her the next morning. Can we talk? She didn't reply. I sent another message that evening. Please, I just want to hear your voice. Nothing. I called. Straight to voicemail. I told myself to stop, to give her space. But I couldn't, because the only thing worse than knowing the truth was not knowing, and not knowing was killing me. I met Tom by accident. I was sitting in a bar near my hotel, drinking alone. He sat down next to me, British accent, late 50 seconds, weathered, looked like he'd seen some things. You look like you could use a mate, he said. I shrugged. Something like that. Tom, he said, extending his hand. Ken, I said. We shook. He ordered a beer. We sat in silence for a bit. Then he said, First time in the Philippines? Yeah, I said. You? 8 years, he said. Cebu the whole time. You like it? I asked. It's all right, he said. Cheaper than the UK. Weather's better. People are nice. Mostly. I nodded. Took a sip of my beer. Let me guess, he said. You met a girl. I looked at him. How'd you know? He laughed. Not a happy laugh. Because that's why we all come here. And that's why we all stay. Until we figure out what's really going on. What's really going on? I asked. Depends, he said. Sometimes it's real. Sometimes it's not. Usually, it's not. I told him about Lynn. How we met. How we fell in love. How I was sending her money every month while we waited for the visa. He listened. Didn't interrupt. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed. Mate, he said, you know she has a boyfriend, right? I laughed, shook my head. No, she doesn't. What are you talking about? Local guy. They've been together for years. You're wrong, I said. I don't know who you're thinking of, but it's not her. He pulled out his phone, scrolled for a minute, then handed it to me. Is this her? I looked at the screen. My stomach dropped. It was a Facebook post. Lynn, smiling, arms around a Filipino man, young, maybe 30. They were at a restaurant, looked happy. I scrolled down. More photos, dozens of them. Lynn and this man, at the beach, at parties, holding hands, the dates. Last week, 3 days ago, while I was sending her money, while I was sitting alone in Newcastle, worrying about her. She was with him. That's not real, I said. My voice sounded far away. Those could be old. They're not, Tom said. I know the guy. Everyone knows him. He's a regular at the clubs, always with foreign guys' girlfriends. I handed the phone back. My hands were shaking. I need another drink. Tom ordered for both of us. I'm sorry, mate. I really am. But you're not the first, and you won't be the last. How long have you known? I asked. About Lynn, he shrugged. A few weeks. I wasn't sure it was the same girl at first. Then I saw you with her at a mall. Recognized you both. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked. Would you have believed me? He said. He was right. I wouldn't have. I still didn't want to believe it. But the photos were right there, clear as day. What do I do? I asked. Tom looked at me. His eyes were tired. Sad, like he'd been through this himself. You walk away, mate. You stop sending money. You block her number, and you go home. What if you're wrong? I said. What if there's an explanation? There's always an explanation, Tom said, and it's never the one you want to hear. I sat there for a long time, staring at my drink, thinking about every moment with Lynn, every touch, every smile, every promise. Were they all fake? Was any of it real? Or was I just another lonely old man she could exploit? I didn't want to know, but I had to. I had to hear it from her. I messaged her that night, kept it simple. Lynn, are you seeing someone else? I waited. 1 hour, 2 hours. A full day passed. No reply. Then 2 days. Finally, she responded. I don't owe you anything, Ken. You gave me money because you wanted to. That doesn't make me yours. I read the message 3 times, trying to make sense of it, trying to find some other meaning. But there wasn't one. I called her. It rang once, then went to voicemail. She'd blocked me. I tried WhatsApp. Blocked. Facebook. Blocked. I sent one final message through email. The only thing she couldn't block immediately. I thought you loved me. I watched the status change to read, but no reply came. Not that night, not the next day, not ever. I sat in my apartment, the lights off, staring at my bank statements. 3 months of payments, $800 each, $2,000, $400, almost 2,000 pounds, gone. Plus the hospital bills, the school fees, the roof repairs. I'd sent her over $4,000 in total. My pension was nearly drained. I had nothing left. I'd blown through my savings. For what? For a woman who couldn't even be bothered to lie to me properly. I thought about calling the police. But what would I say? I gave her money willingly. She didn't steal it. I was just stupid enough to believe her. I thought about messaging her one more time, begging for an explanation, something, anything. But I knew it wouldn't matter. She'd already moved on. I was just another foreigner she'd bled dry. Another story she'd tell her boyfriend. Another joke. I opened my laptop, looked at flights back to Newcastle. They were expensive. I'd have to wait until next month's pension came in. Maybe the month after. I was trapped. Trapped in a country where I'd thought I'd found love. Trapped with nothing but my own stupidity to keep me company. I thought about the man in the photos. Young, local, probably broke, and she loved him, really loved him, while I was just the bank, the walking ATM with a heartbeat. I wanted to hate her. God, I wanted to hate her. But all I felt was empty, hollow, like someone had reached inside my chest and pulled everything out. I'd given her everything, and she'd taken it, and she didn't even have the decency to pretend it hurt her too. I didn't leave right away. I couldn't afford to. Not yet. So I stayed, sat with it, the shame, the stupidity, the crushing weight of knowing I'd been played. Every morning, I woke up and looked at myself in the mirror. Tried to find the man I used to be, but he was gone, replaced by someone older, more tired, more broken. I walked the same streets where Lynn and I had walked, the waterfalls, the beaches, the roadside stalls where we'd eaten. Everything looked the same, but it all felt different, like I was haunting my own memories. I thought about every moment, every sign I'd ignored, the way she'd always been on her phone, the way she'd gotten angry when I asked questions, the way she'd pulled away the moment I sent that first payment. It was all there, right in front of me, and I'd missed it. Or maybe I hadn't missed it. Maybe I'd just chosen not to see it, because seeing it meant being alone again, and I couldn't handle that. So I'd let myself believe, let myself hope, let myself think that maybe, just maybe, someone could love me, not for my money, not for my visa, just for me. I sat on the beach one evening, the same spot where I'd proposed, where she'd cried and said yes, where I'd felt like the luckiest man alive. I wondered if she'd been planning it even then, if she'd known exactly what she was going to do, or if it had just happened naturally, one request leading to another, one lie building on the next, until I was buried under them. I wasn't angry at her anymore. That had faded. Now I was just angry at myself, for being so desperate, for needing someone so badly I'd ignored every red flag, for thinking money could buy love, for thinking I deserved a second chance. Maybe I didn't. Maybe this was what I'd earned, a lifetime of building walls, of working too much, of pushing people away. And now, when I finally wanted to let someone in, they'd rob me blind. The sun set. The sky turned orange and pink, just like the night I'd met her. But this time, I didn't feel hope. I just felt tired. tired of pretending, tired of lying to myself, tired of being the man who believed in fairy tales. I stood up, brushed the sand off my pants, walked back to my hotel. Tomorrow, I'd check flight prices again. Tomorrow, I'd start figuring out how to go home, but tonight, I'd just sit with the truth, the painful, ugly truth. I'd been used, and I'd let it happen, and now I had to live with that. I booked the flight 3 weeks later. It took that long to scrape together enough for the ticket. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. There was no one to tell. I packed my bag, checked out of the hotel, took one last walk through the city. I thought about messaging Lynn. Not to beg, not to ask for the money back, just to say goodbye, to close the loop somehow. But what would be the point? She'd made it clear. I didn't matter. I never had. At the airport, I sat in the terminal and watched families reunite. Couples holding hands, people starting vacations, starting adventures. I was just ending mine. On the plane, I stared out the window, watched the Philippines disappear beneath the clouds. Somewhere down there, Lynn was living her life, probably with her boyfriend, probably laughing about the old British guy who'd paid her bills for 3 months. I wondered if she ever thought about me. Probably not. I was just one of many, a name on a Western Union receipt, a voice on a phone that got too needy, a problem she'd solved by hitting the block button. Back in Newcastle, the flat was exactly as I'd left it, cold, empty, quiet. My daughter called that evening. "Dad, you're back. How was it?" "Fine," I said. "Did you have a good time?" "Yeah," I said. "It was nice." "Meet anyone interesting?" she asked. I thought about Lynn, about the smile that had cost me everything, about the promises that had meant nothing. "No," I said. "No one interesting." We talked for a few more minutes. She told me about work, about her kids, about her life. A life that didn't include me except in these obligatory phone calls. When we hung up, I sat in my chair, the same chair I'd sat in before I left, like nothing had changed, but everything had changed. I'd left Newcastle broken, lonely, looking for something to fill the void, and I'd come back even more broken, even more lonely, with a void so deep I didn't think anything could fill it now. I thought about what I'd wanted: love, companionship, a second chance, and what I'd gotten: a lesson, an expensive one, but a lesson all the same. I wondered if Lynn ever thought about me, if she ever felt guilty, if she ever woke up and thought about the man who'd given her everything and gotten nothing in return. Probably not. People like her don't feel guilt. They feel justified. They tell themselves they deserve it, that they're just surviving, that it's not personal, and maybe it wasn't. Maybe I was just a transaction, a means to an end. Maybe that's all any of us are to each other. I sat there in the dark, my empty flat, my empty life, and I realized something. I'd gone looking for someone to fill the void, but the void was always mine to fill. No one else could do it for me. Not Lynn, not my ex-wife, not my kids, just me. And I'd wasted so much time, so much money, so much hope, trying to make someone else responsible for my happiness. That was the real lesson. Not that Lynn was a liar, but that I'd been lying to myself, and that hurt more than anything she'd ever done. Months passed. Winter came to Newcastle. I got into a routine. Wake up, make coffee, read the paper, watch TV, sleep, repeat. My pension came in each month. I paid my bills, bought my food, watched the balance slowly creep back up. Not much, but enough. One evening, I was sitting in a pub, the same one I'd gone to for years. Before the divorce, before the Philippines, before Lynn. A mate from the old construction crew sat down next to me. "Ken, haven't seen you in ages. Where have you been?" "Away," I said. "Traveling." "Anywhere good?" he asked. I thought about it. About the beaches, the waterfalls, the smile that had destroyed me. "The Philippines," I said. He raised his eyebrows. "Nice. You thinking of going back?" I laughed. No, I'm not." He ordered a pint. Why not? Didn't like it. It was fine, I said. Just not for me. We sat in silence for a while. Then he said, You ever think about going back to work? We could use a good foreman on the new site. I'm 67, I said. Too old for that. You're never too old, he said. Think about it. After he left, I sat there, thinking about work, about purpose, about what I'd do with the rest of my life. The truth is, I still thought about Lynn. Not every day, but often enough. I thought about the man I'd been when I met her, lonely, desperate, willing to believe anything, and I thought about who I was now, still lonely, still desperate, but at least awake, at least aware. $800 a month. That's what it had cost to learn I couldn't buy love. That's what it had cost to learn I was looking for someone to save me when I should have been saving myself. I didn't regret the money. Not really. Money comes and goes. What I regretted was the hope, the belief that someone could look at me and see something worth staying for. That hurt more than the bank statements, more than the blocked numbers, more than the photos of her with someone else, because it meant I'd been fooling myself all along. But maybe that was okay. Maybe that's what life is. A series of mistakes, a series of lessons learned too late, a series of voids we try to fill with other people until we finally realize the void is ours alone. I finished my pint, paid the tab, walked home through the cold Newcastle streets, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel heartbroken. I just felt tired but awake. And maybe that was enough. Maybe that's all any of us can hope for, to wake up, to see things clearly, to stop lying to ourselves, even if the truth hurts, even if it costs us everything, because at least then we're living in reality, and reality, however painful, is better than the beautiful lie. I'd learned that the hard way. $800 a month. That was the price of waking up. And now that I was awake, I had to figure out what to do with the time I had left. Not much, but something. Maybe that would be enough.